So, hello everyone. My name is Eva de Hullu. I'm an assistant professor of clinical psychology at the Open Universiteit in the Netherlands. I also work as a psychologist in clinical practice, and I serve as president for the International Association for Perceptual Control Theory, which is like more of a scientific club of people. And I regularly talk to Ed van der Winden, also present here, about how systems thinking and perceptual control theory fit together. So I'm excited to have the opportunity here today to share this like inside-out approach to systems thinking. And I hope it offers you a few new ideas to think about. And I also try to make to develop the presentation to help you understand like the key principles. So I'm not talking about all the science things, but more about the kind of thinking that's involved. So perceptual control theory, PCT in short, was developed in the 1960s onward by Bill Powers, an engineer. So the theory has a very engineering kind of, but I'm struggling a bit with my English. I'm from the Netherlands, of course, but I'll get used to it. So he has a background in engineering, and you can see this in all kinds of details in the theory. But it continues to be a basis for research and applications in a very broad field of sociology, robotics, biology, psychology, and psychotherapy. So it's a very broad kind of theory, and it fits well within a lineage of systems thinking, particularly cybernetics. And I'm not going to talk about that, but if you are interested, we outline this in a preface of our interdisciplinary handbook, which I co-authored with Warren Mansell, and I think those in Manchester may have met either Warren or Tim Carey, one of the other people active in the perceptual control theory. But the basic tenet of a perceptual control theory is that we control our input. We control our perceptions, like the way we experience the world. And this is also reflected in the title of Powers' book, the behavior, the control of perception. So he outlines the theory in detail. So if you want to learn more about it, you can find this book. But to understand the principle of control, I want to show you a little demonstration. And this is a video, there's no sound, so you don't expect to hear anything. And you will see two people who have both put a marker through a loop of an elastic band. And the person on the left will be drawing a picture on the paper. And I want you to think about what the person on the right is doing. So what do you think the person on the right is doing? If someone wants to open their microphone and tell me what they think, that would be very helpful.
Maintain the tension.
Maintain the tension. Okay. Other ideas?
Pull in pretty much the opposite direction to the person on the left and create a 180 radial symmetry by doing so.
Okay. And other ideas?
I think he's trying to replicate what he or she sees instead of the tension of the rubber band.
Yeah, replicate the drawing. Yeah.
Yes, the center of the loop over the keep the center of the loop over the orange dot.
The center of the loop over the orange dot. I see other people nodding their heads. Who was saying that? Wolfgang, right? Or someone else? Yeah, didn't notice exactly. So that's the key to control. So many people, when they watch this video, they think what you are also saying, that the person on the right is trying to recreate the drawing or maintain the tension. But that's not actually the case. So the person on the right has been given one simple instruction, and that is to make sure that the knot of the rubber band remains above the dot. So if I can. So while you see all kinds of things happening, you see the behavior of the person on the right. And you are somehow misled by that behavior to think, well, the goal must be to make a drawing or to maintain the tension. But the actual control, the thing that the person wants to achieve is very simple. Just try to keep that not above the dot. And to keep control, and this is also obvious in this video, in order to keep control, to maintain a certain aspect of your environment in a stable position, you need to counteract all the disturbances. So when the person on the left is moving, you need to move as well to keep the position on the same place. So this is a classic example of perceptual control. And it also makes clear why it's such a difficult concept to grasp, because it's not obvious. Control, when it's going well, is quite invisible. I'll tell you a bit more about that later. So I'll dive a bit into the core of perceptual control theory, and that's this feedback loop you see on the screen. And this diagram represents the fundamental process of how all living organisms control their perception, because this is a theory about how humans control, but it is also about how bacteria control, or about how trees control. Like control is a universal principle. So the key idea of perceptual control theory is that we act to experience what we want to experience. And I'll walk you through the components. Let's see if we have this here. Yeah. So on the left, we start at the input function, and the input function is our current perception. Like, what are we experiencing right now? And this could be as simple as like hearing my voice, or as complex as understanding this theory. And so the input signal can be very simple and very complex. And then on top you have the reference signal, and this represents what we want to experience. This is our goal or our desire. So what we want to experience, and this is the same kind of signal. This is also a perceptual signal. So we all continuously compare these two signals, the reference signal and the input signal, and the difference between those two is the error signal. And this error signal represents the discrepancy between those two, between what we want and what we are experiencing. And this error drives the output. So the output tells the lower systems what is needed to bring our perceptions closer to our desired perception. And this is how we interact with our environment to reduce the error. So this is basically a negative feedback loop. So of course, our output affects the environment, and this in turn influences our input. And thus we change the world we experience continuously. Like we make the world like we want it. We want to experience it. And I think this, I called my presentation today like the inside-out view on systems thinking, and I think this loop shows how this works, because we can only understand the control from within the perspective of the controlling agent. Right? So we're not looking upon the system, because if we look upon the system, we can only see what it does. But from within the system, we can understand what is it trying to control. It's trying to control its own perception, and perception is only understood from within the system. I'll tell you a bit more about perception as well later. So when you understand this kind of control to be like this, can you tell me a bit about what you think you control in daily life. You can type your answers in the chat, or I don't know if I can see the chat as well at this moment, or you can say it out loud. Oh yeah, I can see the chat as well. So think about what kind of aspects in your life do you keep under control? Do you maintain at a stable state? Anyone wants to try? What time my alarm goes off every morning? The heating thermostat. Thermostat is in itself a control system. That's interesting, yeah. Your physical effort, your emotional state, levels of conflict. And then there's the question, do we control consciously? We control consciously and unconsciously all the time. Because when I speak, I control like the level of my voice and the tone of my voice. I control the way, I try to control the way the words flow out. I try to speak properly English, and sometimes this control is lost. So this is all kinds, these are all controlled variables, where you are, my posture. Yeah. Some Michael says he controls less than I think he does. I think you control more than you think you do, but I'll explain more about what types of control you have. Perfect. Lots of examples of control. Let me find my presentation again. So we control our perceptions, and I also noticed this in the replies. Our perceptions can have many shapes. For example, I control the intensity of pressure on my skin when I touch my own hand. I can press my fingers. So this is, I control how much pressure I want to feel by changing how hard I press, right? So this is also control. You all control like the clarity of your screen or your distance from yourself to the screen. I can try to control to fit myself into the screen properly. We control the taste of chocolate, taste of everything, of course. So you want the taste to be just right. And when I look outside the window, I also control the movement of a tree leaf. I don't make it move, but I can experience how it moves, and I like form a shape of movement in my mind. We control how objects on our desk relate to each other, like what is on top of what. We also control how we understand things to be distinct from each other, like what is a pen or what is a pencil. And even so, we build up our control cognitively into even ever more complex levels. So we also control predictability, like how we control patterns and we anticipate what happens next. And we control our perception in the form of algorithmic and programmatic thinking. So we make plans and we execute plans and we find out ways to do things. This is also control, and also a way that we usually understand control, right? You have everything in your own hands. You make things happen like you want them to happen. But this is just one way of controlling. And at even higher levels, we control the values and principles we hold. We control whether we feel safe or whether we feel loved or whether we feel like we belong in a group, and like all kinds of complex variables. And all these controlled variables are also held together by the way we understand the world, like our worldview. And what I'm explaining to you now, this theory is also a concept, a system concept that I control, and I hope you might be interested to control as well. So these are all controlled variables. So from the perspective of perceptual control theory, everything is control. Like all behavior is control of perception. So it's not a question like whether you control or not. It's like you control all the time. And we can control perceptions that are this complex, because our control systems, like the system I just showed you, is just one system, but it's it's like a part of an entire organization of control systems, like billions of control systems in our own nervous system. And it has the structure of a hierarchy. And that means that parallel systems work together, and it allows layers of parallel systems work together, and that allows us to control like many different types of perception simultaneously. And starting from the bottom, the lowest level receives input directly from our senses. So this is our sight, our hearing, our sense of touch. So this is where we process this basic sensory information. But as we move up in the hierarchy, each level combines signals from the levels below into a particular type of perception. So they come together in a new kind of perception. For instance, from the light on your retina, you construct an image of my hands moving at this moment, right? So this is in essence, it's just light that you see. But in your mind, you construct an image of hands, and you even construct an understanding of hands, and you might even construct like the meaning I want to convey with my hands, if you even can see them on the screen. So higher up, you construct from the lower level perceptions. So these higher levels consist of the lower level perceptions, and this is how we form the complex perceptions and abstract ideas. And these higher levels, so this is a two-way street. So higher levels consist of lower level perceptions, but they control through sending down the reference signals for lower levels. So if, for example, a higher level perception that I hold is to feel like in this moment, I want to feel sort of understood, right? I want to have a sense that you are interested and in this theory. So when I get a sense that you are like tuning out, or maybe like all disappearing from the room, that would disturb my sense of being interesting. I would try to solve that problem, right? So this is how my higher level perception of wanting to be interesting, to have an interesting conversation, steers my lower level perception. So I can adapt my behavior, I can adapt whatever I'm saying to achieve that goal. And this all happens like continuously on many layers, in many separate and ways, separate and also connected ways. And how this works within ourselves, because we are control systems, it is also reflected how this works at a higher scale. For example, in organizational context, which it's of course your field. So this also explains why changes at a higher level in an organization, like a shift in company values or a strategy, has a wide-ranging effect throughout the organization, because all the people in organizations are also control systems connected to each other and to the higher levels. So this idea of control is very valuable to understand at the personal level, but also at a higher level. And as I understand from the examples, right, you don't often are conscious of what you control. But it's most obvious, control is most obvious when you lose it. I see questions in the chat, but I can't answer them while I'm talking, but I'll connect with them later after the talk. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. So control is most obvious when you lose it. And one example of this is for example, a disturbance, and I don't know if I can try to fix that. Yeah. So I noticed some
That
people.
was a disturbance.
That was a disturbance, right? So that's an example of control that's lost temporarily, and I saw some people being relieved when I came back, when my sound came back. So disturbances happen all the time. You're trying to control things and something gets in the way, and usually we find ways get around it. I think you also notice like this kind of annoyance, or right, you have a kind of a negative feeling when there's a disturbance going on, and this motivates you to fix whatever is the problem. I love to do online talks because this is the perfect disturbance example of this disturbance. But another main problem why control is lost is conflict, and I'll tell you a bit more about that. I'll show you what conflict is like. So conflict is when two control systems have opposing goals for the same reference value. This is another video. Wait, it's stuck in the... So the two persons have different reference values for the same controlled variable. So they both want to keep the knot in position of the dot. And you see what happens. So they go left and right, and there's lots of movement and fighting, and the tension is very high because eventually the rubber band breaks. And that's why this is a very nice demo to try at home, because you understand conflict immediately. So this is an example of conflict, and conflict also happens all the time. Whenever we make a choice, we are in conflict. So usually one side of the conflict is maybe a bit stronger. You find some extra arguments and you win. So that's one way to end the conflict, is to have one side win it. But the most problematic conflicts are the ones where both sides are equally strong and don't want to give up. So you have a very high tension. And an example is I don't know about. I saw some of you are a bit too old to have small children at home, but maybe you've had them before. But you have children. You want to leave the house at a certain times, and your children don't want to leave yet. So that's a clear conflict, right? You can't leave on time because they don't want to leave at your time, and you don't want to leave at their time. So you're shouting and fighting and always late as a parent. So that's an example of a conflict. But also for example, in a work context, if you want to use system A to perform a particular task, and your coworker wants to use system B, right? You have one task which is like the same, the knot, and you have two dots, system A and system B. And this conflict makes it impossible to satisfy both reference values, so neither gets what they want. And while you're fighting over this position, you're both tense. You're not solving the problem at hand, so you're not doing the task, and you get frustration. So it creates all kinds of problems. And I think this understanding of conflict from this perceptual control perspective is kind of powerful, because it shifts our focus from like personality clashes, from like, well, he's just annoying, or she's doing it wrong, or she just needs to listen to me, or kind of complaints about conflicts. It shifts our view to the underlying structure of the situation. So it helps us see that neither you nor your coworker is being unreasonable. It's just that both are trying to control your perceptions based on your individual reference values. So each of us wants to experience the world in our own, according to our own reference values. So that's one way to look at conflicts. I'm also curious, please type in the chat, what kind of conflicts do you experience, either at home or at work? What kind of conflicts come to mind when I tell you about this? I see some Israel versus Hezbollah as well, yeah. And as I said before, we can use this theory to understand what happens at the individual level, but also at the sociological level. And I'll talk about conflict resolution later, but I'm not sure if we're able to solve this one. Over priorities within myself, internal voices. So many conflicts. And I see some examples, and we can see from a conflict that it can run out of control pretty soon, like a grandson banging his head on the floor to get his way. So I won't go into vicious circles, but conflicts escalate as both sides of the conflict try to get their way in whatever, using all their power.
He's only 2, so I'm still in control, but I'm worrying about the next years.
Yeah. You have a powerful, like conflicts are often a sign of powerful control from both sides. So when people are sloppy controllers, they don't get in conflict much. But like especially this sensitive and kids who know what they want, they get into conflict more often. So maybe it's actually a good sign, but it takes some time, Ed. Oh, thanks. Yeah. So there's all kinds of conflicts in our society. And then the problem is, of course, like how can we resolve conflicts? How can we take care that it doesn't, that we don't lose control and that we don't stay stuck? And this is, so I'm telling you about like the main principles of this theory. Like one is control, next is conflict, and the last one is reorganization. And in conflict resolution, that's the part where my job as a psychologist comes in handy, because my main task as a therapist is to help my clients solve their internal conflicts. And I'll tell you a bit more about that later. So according to PCT, we resolve conflict through a process called reorganization. So we are all built of control systems, and we control through sending down the reference signals to lower systems, telling them what to do or what to experience. But when this doesn't work, when we lose control because of conflict, we need to change our goals. We need to move our desire, change our desires, and like move a bit, right? We don't want to stay stuck. And to understand how we can start moving again, we can use this 3-layer model of conflict. So at the bottom layer, we can find like all these systems, they are really working hard, but never satisfied, because they have this conflicting, they are like stuck within these conflicting higher goals. So for example, if I'm trying to read a book, but at the same time I need to cook dinner, I can't concentrate, because while reading, I think, well, I should actually start dinner. But when I'm making dinner, I am annoyed because I wanted to finish my book, right? So these are continuously unhappy with the state they are in a conflict. So there's the tension at the bottom layer. And then in the middle layer, this is where the conflicting systems with the contradictory goals reside. So one system wants to finish reading, and the other one wants to start cooking. But the crucial layer in conflict resolution is the top layer, and this is the context in which the conflict originates. This is like where the rules of the game are set. And you're often unaware of this level, because you just are stuck in the conflict, right? You notice, well, this isn't working. It's very hard to move your awareness, to open your awareness to this higher level systems. And reorganization is this process of changing the control systems from within, particularly through involving these higher levels to set new references for lower levels, which solve the conflict. So, for example, in this cooking example, I'm stuck in this conflict because I think, oh, I can't do the same thing at the same. Oh, I can do the things that I want at the same time. So I can either cook or read my book. But if I allow myself to resolve this, I can maybe find other ways. I can listen to an audiobook while I'll start cooking, or I can discuss with my partner. Well, we will start dinner late because I want to finish this book first, right? So you can find new solutions because you have changed the rules of the game. And this reorganization, I think reorganization is a topic that Ed van der Winden and me and some other systems thinking discuss most often, like when we are stuck, when we're stuck in organizational problems, or I'm stuck with clients, or clients are mostly stuck with themselves. So to understand this process, I think that's the most important thing of perceptual control. So how do we reorganize effectively? So first we need to pause. You need to pause your attempts to solve the problem through changing output. And this is like, stop doing whatever you are currently doing to solve the problem, because as long as you're running and as long as you're pulling that band, you're not sitting still to solve, you're not considering the other options. And the next point is you must have space to focus your attention to where the problem is, and like not be. Yeah, that's also a part of sitting with the problem. So you need to focus your attention there, and then while doing that, you need to consider all the systems involved in the problem, not just the systems in isolation, but especially these fighting systems. You need to consider both sides of the conflict. And when reorganization happens, and this can happen like structured through like a mediation practice, or through therapy, or through your systems thinking efforts. But when it happens, you notice that it allows reference values to change. So something changes in the organization, and this might feel like an insight, or a new perspective, or new goals, or new connections that are made. So how do we help this reorganization to take place? And this is, I think, almost the last part of my presentation. So these are principles that I hold as a therapist, but also think that apply to organizational problems. So I'm happy to share them with you. One important principle is that when there's a system stuck in conflict and needs to reorganize, you don't take away control from the systems involved. So you don't take over control and don't try to steer them in a certain direction, but keep the systems that are running into problems in control. So you have to ask them questions and to give them time to propose their own solutions, and don't and resist the urge to solve the problem for others. Because we understand that individuals are always trying to control their own perceptions. So we need to create an environment where people feel empowered to explore and adjust their own control systems. And this mostly has to do with like safety, for a safe context of safe exploration. And the second principle is curiosity. So we really need to be curious and explore all sides of the problem, so all sides of the conflict, including the perspectives that might seem contradictory or unwanted or mean or naive, or all the kinds of things that we'd rather not hear in normal conversations, but these need to be on the table as well. So because this curiosity, it helps us uncover the higher level goals and values that are driving the conflict, because someone might blurt out, well, I actually don't feel safe to use this system, or I don't feel competent to use this system. So you need to have these kinds of perceptions on the table as well, to understand why someone prefers the one system over the other. And third, while we are doing this, so we're not taking away control, we're leaving the other the reorganizing system in control. We're staying curious, ask all kinds of questions. Third principle is to notice everything, like emotions, thoughts, imagery, whatever comes to mind or whatever happens at the table within persons or between persons needs to be attended to. And this creates a kind of holistic awareness where connections and patterns are revealed that aren't apparent when you focus solely on like the rational or obvious solutions. And this is also, as a therapist, when someone is talking, I help them to notice, like, someone looks often like at the back of their mind. So I ask them, what do you see happening there? What's happening now? Right. So you broaden awareness by noticing these small things. And the last one is the most difficult, is to sustain attention at the point where it hurts. Because it's natural that we want to avoid discomfort and we want to run to solve a problem as quickly as possible. But this key to reorganization, especially if it's complex, we need time to reorganize. So you don't want to jump into the first solution that comes to mind, but like feel the solution and feel how it fits with everyone and change when it's needed. So by following these 4 principles and keeping them all in balance at the same time, we create an environment that allows reorganization to take place and conflicts to resolve in an organic way. So not by steering into a certain solution that you have in mind. So we're not forcing it, but rather like allowing the system to naturally evolve towards a new and more effective state. So that's those are the key principles of perceptual control theory. And in my conclusion, I hope you've gained some insight into this inside-out approach to system thinking, and hope you think about like what perceptions are people trying to control. Maybe start with yourself, like what perception am I trying to control? Are there any persisting conflicting goals that I'm trying to achieve? And how can we solve a problem by facilitating reorganization at a higher level? And that concludes my presentation. I shared my contact details here, and I'm happy to talk to anyone about this theory or about thoughts you have. And I will also share my presentation because I have the links to the books. So I'll share a PDF later. That's it, folks.
Eva, thank you very much. Love that.
Thanks.
Can I just, if you want to ask questions, can you raise a hand on screens? But while people are thinking about that, I've got a couple of questions for you, if I may, Eva.
Yes.
So the first
shall I stop sharing the screen so you have a better presentation?
I can see people.
Yeah.
So the first is, if people want to know more, what would be a good starting point? Is it your guide?
Yeah, so we have this website of the iapct.org. It's our website of the International Association for Perceptual Control Theory. And it also has some starting text. I think they might fit your... because as a system thinker, you have already like a basic knowledge of how things work. I think it might be an easy start there. So I will share the website address. Yeah.
Thanks. And my other question was, as a psychologist, because this kind of runs counter to a lot of conventional psychological theory, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How does it play with other psychologists?
Because
you've got a different reference point to them, haven't you? So
yeah, so it's a complicated field. Because I think the same is true in England. We have a very CBT, a cognitive behavioral approach to psychology, which is lots of focus on behavior and changing behavior directly. And PCT has a focus on perception, which is on the opposite part of the control loop. And I think at the same time, we also noticed that CBT doesn't deliver its promises of effectivity, right? So it should have been a solution to everything, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work for a lot of people. And we need, I think we're now moving into like more of a systemic view or more organic view of psychology. Or that may be wishful thinking of me because I can't wait to move in that direction. But there's tension there. Yeah. I see my students are very interested in this theory, but my colleagues are more resistant because they already have their fields of CBT.
Yeah. How many people practice this? Apart from you and Warren.
Yeah, so we are, I think we are a small group. So the therapy method is called a method of levels because we move through these levels of perception. So in the Netherlands, we have a group of, I think, maybe 20 to 50 therapists doing this properly and connecting with each other. And the same is, I think, true in UK and Australia. But there's many people interested in doing a course once or applying it in their other practices as well.
Great,
So
thank you.
It's still small.
Yeah, but small but powerful.
Yeah, promising and powerful. Yeah.
Any other questions?
So,
There's plenty of stuff in the chat, so there's got to be some more
Yeah,
questions.
I'll stick for a moment afterwards. Yeah.
Wolfgang has been putting some things in the chat, and so let him choose one of his comments as a question.
Yeah, thank you. What just popped up when you said that the approach doesn't perform as expected. I mean, I have some ideas why it might not be. What are the insiders' hypotheses why where these limitations come from?
From cognitive behavioral therapy,
Yeah.
you mean? Yeah. I don't know who actually are the insiders of this therapy anymore, because well, as a scientific psychology, we have like I think one of the problems is that we look at the parts and don't consider the whole. So as a scientist, we are very good at either anxiety or depression or behavior or right. So or thoughts or imagery. But we don't consider the whole. So we need a new theory to consider the whole. And I see some people that I work because I did my PhD in cognitive behavioral in the cognitive behavioral background, and I also see some people I worked with. They're moving towards a new systemic view, but I haven't got a good story yet if they haven't encountered PCT. It's more of a dynamic systems modeling, which is very complicated for psychologists to understand. I think. Not sure if that answers your question, but no. I see I see a question for Gav from Gav.
Am I? Yeah, I am. Yeah, thank you for that. I have a dusty old degree in psychology somewhere. And so this is like really cool. And I like the different stuff. I particularly liked at the end, you know, the lean into the discomfort thing, which is quite a I don't know what the word is, but it is quite a spiritual sort of you know, approach. And I really dig that because you know, a lot of the stuff is, oh, let's just analyze, dissect, rather than engage with it as it kind of feels, you know.
Yeah.
So I really dig that. And then what came up for me while you were talking was about I'm just thinking of like when you get people in a room and you try to get them to do stuff, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and you can have the best exercises in the world, and then actually the relational system of what's going on, of how people are relating or interacting with each other, and seeing that as a set of conflicting controls of perception or whatever, and then the alignment. And I'm always reminded of the line, I think, from Patrick about to solve the paradox, go one level up, which is what we're talking about.
Yes.
And then I'm thinking about that holism diagram. I think it's referenced to Markov, but you have the thing, and then you have the parts underneath, and then you have the different contexts above, in this case, the different types of controls that are trying to happen, or the reference points. And then looking through different reference points at the same thing enables you to choose and reorganize different things at the lower level. So yeah, I really liked it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, the things you describe is, I think that's also the power of this theory, that it can bring these fields and these thoughts together, because well, we all find solutions to our problems in this direction. I don't think PCT is the only way to approach this, but because it's like a very clear theory, and it also has this engineering like specificity. I think it can combine it can unite many fields.
Any other questions? If not, I'll indulge in another one if I may. So I think what you're talking about with the sort of tension between reference points is kind of universal in I mean, in any decision. That's what you're doing.
That's a decision.
Yeah. So it's like everywhere. And I am wondering how much work's been done on taking. I mean, at one level, I can go, yeah, we've got this in VSM because you've got the multiple levels, you've got the tensions, you've got the, but I'm wondering to what extent the techniques that are in PCT are applicable to organizational contexts, and has work been done on that rather than in a sort of a personal psychology context?
So
that would be fascinating as well.
We have Kent McClelland. He's a sociologist, and he writes about mediation processes from a PCT perspective. So that's one. So he also looks at how groups of people either collaborate, like collective control, and also how conflict works at that level. So there's been some texts on that. And if you have like for any of one, if you have specific questions, I'd love to point you in a direction if I know it. But there has been some work done in the last 50 years.
Are you open to people firing things over to you after the meeting and saying,
yes,
where do
that's
I go
perfect.
for this?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Simon.
Yeah, very quick one. Thank you very much. That was really excellent. I mean, it was lovely, but it resonated with so much that we do in systems, right? I mean, it resonated with me with a lot of the stuff that Vickers did on appreciative systems, Checkman's SSM, and the different worldviews that we have, and ladders of influence, and Patrick's mentioned VSM. So I wonder whether we should start to bake this into some of the ways we position systems thinking and apply systems thinking in practice. How can we be, so my question to the whole group really is, how can we start to use this as part of the message about why systems thinking is so powerful and does so much? It also, as I put in the comment, sort of links to the ethical choices that we have to make consistently, whatever methods that we apply, right? So, I mean, it's so good and so powerful, and you've made it so clear. We must be able to message it into our practice somehow. How do we do that?
That's a question I should leave with you, and I'll just be there to collaborate if it's needed. Well, one thing, because like the main book that we have is Power's own book of behavioral control of perception, and that's 50 years old. So we can go out in the world and saying to people, please read this book. So I wrote the book, but that will appear in the Netherlands in spring, explaining what I just explained to you as well. But I think we also, as perceptual control people, we need to explain more broadly what it is like and share that information.
Is the book in English or Dutch, Eva?
In Dutch yet, but I hope that we can find interested parties to translate as well.
Okay. Hugh, you've got a hand up. Maybe that was an accidental hand.
Disturbance.
Yeah.
May have been a disturbance, yeah. I've just, while we're waiting for Hugh or not, I think your point, Simon, that, it came over really, really strongly, didn't it? Of this as a sort of an integrative way of looking at things. So, something that kind of harmonizes SSM and VSM, and they're all different ways of tackling the same thing, which is this, moving up and down levels to integrate. I think that's a potentially a really, really powerful story.
Great.
So.
Yeah, I did one course in systems thinking at the Open University in the UK, system thinking in practice. So to get to know this systems thinking field, and well, everything was quite familiar, but just looking at it from another side. So I think we really have lots of opportunities to integrate.